Okay, hello. Welcome to our Wednesday after school club. My name is Kim. I'm a community learning specialist with DoSpace, and you are watching right now the Wednesday Junior Makers. So for our younger kids, but for this week, it's actually pretty similar to our older kids. So if you're a little bit older, that's okay too. So welcome. So welcome to our after school club this week. So this for our kind of Wednesday, uh, we have been and are going to be talking about circuits. And so last week we talked about what is a circuit, right? We talked about what's a circuit. If you were around last week, you will know that a circuit is a path in which electricity flows. If you were not here last week, that's totally okay. You should be able to find all of our videos on our website at dospace.org and also on our DoSpace YouTube channel. So you can always catch up. So I'm going to be referring to a lot of last week, but it's going to be kind of like review of last week and also learning about something new this week. And so, like I said, last week we just talked about what a circuit was, and we're going to be talking about circuits, just like really basic ones. And we watched a video and we created just a simple circuit. And this week we are going to be doing something similar, but instead of just making a simple circuit, we are going to be talking about the difference between a parallel circuit and a series circuit. And so those are different. So that's when you have multiple components or multiple outputs kind of connected in a circuit, and there's different ways to kind of arrange your circuit so that the electricity gets to those outputs. So when I say outputs, usually we have like little LED lights, motors, fans, anything that does something is considered like an output. It's doing something outwardly, right? So today our outputs are just going to be our LEDs. We're going to be talking about a little bit others. But so like I said, there are different ways if you are connecting multiple outputs. So last week we did kind of different, we tried different outputs, but it's not like we did multiple in one single circuit. And so this week we're going to be talking about how you can do that. So let's get started. So we're going to talk about a series first. So a series circuit is, it connects the components one right after another. So like I said before, a circuit is a path in which electricity flows, right? So, and a lot of times, because the word circuit even kind of refers to a loop, kind of like where it's all connected together in kind of like a circle or a loop. And a series is just a continuation of that loop where the components, the output components, are one right after another. They form that one single loop, and if there's a break in any part of your series circuit, then it stops the flow of that electricity that's coming from your batteries, and none of the outputs will work. And so we learned last week that there are electrons in our batteries that go from our positive end of our batteries, because our batteries are polarized. So there's every battery has a positive and a negative end. They're polarized. They have two opposites, right? And so the little baby tiny electrons, those tiny little atoms that are in our batteries, they want to get from the positive side of a circuit back to the negative side. And so, and that is how they get our outputs to work. And so if there's a break in any of the wiring, or if something is not connected, if that loop is not closed, if there's an opening, then it's not going to work. So a lot of times, like, there are like purposeful breaks, like with switches, like a light switch or things like that, or off or on switches. Those are kind of like purposeful breaks. So you're not using up the battery, or you're not using up the power of the, or like something like the light, you're not burning that out. But if there is a non-purposeful one, then you want to fix it. So you can kind of see that example of like what a series looks. So up here we have our battery. We have our red wire, because in circuits, red usually indicates it's connected to our positive side of our battery. So we have our red wire, and then that's connected to 1, 2, 3 of our little light bulbs. And that's connected to then this negative or black wire, which is connected to our negative side of our battery. You can kind of see that schematic here. I like this picture up here because it kind of shows with the arrows that flow of electricity. So it shows that how that flow, that current goes. And if there was a break here, or a break here, or a break here, or if the switch was off, then all 3 of these little light bulbs would not work. So they all have to be, so that has to be a nice closed circuit. When there's no breaks, it means that's a closed circuit for it to work. So an example of this is inexpensive or like old strings of holiday lights. So maybe like if you were to get like kind of cheapy holiday lights, or like old school ones from several, maybe 30, 40 years ago, a lot of those holiday lights were set up in a series. So you can imagine that if you, come December, you plug in your lights to see if all the lights work, and if one of those little light bulbs, or if there was something not working in any of in that whole string of lights, then none of them would work. So people would have to go back and check each and every single light bulb and maybe change them and see if they worked to fix your string of lights. Anymore, I'm pretty sure holiday lights are now in a parallel. So, and we'll talk about why that's a little bit better whenever you're bringing like multiple components or multiple outputs to something. But so that's kind of an example of how like what a series is and how a series circuit works. And then our next one is, there we go, our parallel. So our other option, or our other one, is called our parallel circuit. So in a parallel circuit, basically each of our outputs have wires or have individual connections or branch that all connect back to that same battery source. And so so that means that if the wire for one, the negative wire to one light bulb gets snipped for some reason, that won't necessarily affect the rest of your lights. And so so you can see in our example right down here, so we have our batteries, right? And you can see how we have our positive, we have our positive wire and our negative wire. And as long as nothing happened to this, basically if, as long as there isn't like a break in like this one, all 3 of them won't work. So maybe if there was like a break right here in this light, these 2 won't work. But if there's a break right here, for example, if there's a, for some reason, if this wire got snipped, only this light bulb wouldn't work, this last one, but the first 2 still would. And that's because you can see how they each have wires individually connected to them. So, and this, this is kind of like a little bit of like a, there's also different ways where it's like you have wires coming like from here to here, multiple. So you might have like 3 positive wires going 1, 2, 3, and then 3 negative wires going 1, 2, 3, instead of kind of how it's set up here. And then that would mean like if there was a cut, in the middle, the other 2 would still light up, or vice versa. So it basically, they have their own paths, because we talked about a circuit is a path which electricity flows. For a parallel, each have their own individual paths to that electrical source. So they're not, it's not dependent on the other ones. I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat or Q&A, and I will be more than happy to answer those questions. So an example I like to put out is like outlets. You know, if you were to plug in, you know, an outlet, you would, if one for some reason wasn't working, the other one could. Another, I like actually this example better, is, you know, if you have a room that has a light and a fan, sometimes the switch panels on the wall, they have two switches. Sometimes they will have two switches, and you might have a switch for the light and a switch for the fan. And you could have both switches on, so the light and the fan are working. You might have them both off, or both of them are off. And you might have it where the light switch for the light, or the switch for the light is on, but the switch for the fan is off, or vice versa. So you might have the fan on, but the light off. So they're not, you know, it's not, you can kind of mix and match. They're independent from each other, and they're not dependent. So that's another example of how a parallel circuit would work. So they're, you know, both the fan and the light are going to the same, are getting their power from the same source, but because of those purposeful switches, you can turn them off and on as you need to, and it's not like you have to have the fan on with the light, or vice versa. Yeah, so that is kind of my quick version of like a rundown of what a parallel and series circuit. So we are actually going to look at, I have some stuff. Yeah, and we're going to make our own parallel and series circuits. And so we're actually going to do a parallel one. So I'm going to switch my camera so that you can see my stuff. So some of the things I have for us today, and you might not have everything with you today, and that is okay. The nice thing about these videos is that you can always gather up the materials later and come back and watch them on our YouTube channel or on our website. So those, the video for this should be up by next week. So you could always come back and then pause and do whatever. So some things that you definitely need for this week is we need some conductive dough. So I have some Play-Doh, but I'm going to be, last week I kind of talked about like squishy circuits. And it's just like kind of like a circuit kit, which is really cool, and it uses conductive dough. You can use Play-Doh. Play-Doh is actually is conductive, but you can even make your own. So if you want to try making your own conductive dough, you can go to the Squishy Circuits website, and Squishy Circuits is spelled like that, Squishy Circuits. And so, yeah, so you just need some conductive dough. We need some outputs. Today we're going to be using some LED lights, some LED bulbs. So I have some of those here. And then you need your power source. So for our parallel, we're going to be using this. I like this because it has these nice terminals that make it really easy to put into Play-Doh, and it has a nice broad surface so that we get a nice good connection. And it has this nice switch so it can turn on and off. And so this one takes 4 AA batteries. You know, there are all sorts of different battery holders that have 2. I actually have another battery source when we are doing our series. I'm actually going to be using this. I don't have it list, my apologies, but basically this is just a 9-volt like battery adapter with wires, and so then I have my 9-volt battery, and then you can see here that I have just exposed ends of our red and black wire that I'm going to stick in our Play-Doh. So, so that's basically what you need. So I'm going to do a parallel one first. So I'm actually going to go back, and I'm going to move this guy, and I'm going to move these, and we are going to work with these kind of longer pieces of Play-Doh and these 4 LED lights. So I'm going to keep my Squishy Circuits battery holder off for the time being, just because I don't want these terminals to touch, because if this was on and these terminals to touch, they could heat up, and it could be they could get really, really hot, and I don't want. And so we just want to make sure we're being safe about electricity, because even though you know, electricity can be a little bit dangerous. So yeah, making sure that you have your grown-up with you when you're trying stuff like this. So I'm going to keep this off. And what I'm going to do first is, so like I said, our batteries are polarized, right? There's a positive end and a negative end. And so the wires, and I'm actually just going to go back to our series just so I can kind of reiterate that. So our wires also are polarized because we have our red wire, which usually means positive, and our black wire, which usually means negative. And that's because in a circuit, any kind of circuit, the electrons in our batteries are going to come up through our positive to our outputs back through our negative to the negative side of our battery. And so you can kind of see this in our, like, this series picture where, you know, our positive, you see these arrows are going around, and it's not like this is just connected to the negative side of our battery, which is why, because it's split, we just need to make sure that we know, like, this is connected to our positive side of our batteries, this is connected to our negative, and we need to know that because our LED lights are polarized as well. So I'm going to see if I can get one. So you should be able to see, I'm going to see if I can get it in the lighting. Oops. Oh my goodness, that just rolled right off. Get it in a way that you can see without a glare, that our LED lights have these little legs, these wires. They're called leads or legs. I like to call them legs. They're little, they kind of look like little legs. And one is longer than the other. And I think you should be able to see that. And that is purposeful because, like I said, our LED lights, all LED lights are polarized as well. So our long legs, or our long leads, are need to be connected to the positive side of our battery, or positive wires, and then our short leg, or our short leads, need to be connected to our negative side. So if we were to make just a simple circuit and say, like, if this was on, this is off right now. So if I connected this to our positive and this to our negative, we have, this would be like a circuit right here, just like this. And our little LED light would turn on. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to be touching the just exposed terminals. But if I did turn this on, it should light up. And we'd have our positive lead connected to this positive battery, a wire which connects to our positive side of our battery, our negative leg connected to our negative terminal wire to our negative side of the battery. So that is important. If you were to switch it around, if you switched and it was like negative to positive and positive to negative, then it wouldn't work. So I am, to keep things kind of consistent, I'm going to go back to, oh, I did. I'm going to put our positive wire, or red wire, into our red Play-Doh. And then I'm going to put this yellow Play-Doh to be our negative. So we have our negative, negative, positive. Okay, so I'm just going to, again, just to put this on. So I'm going to kind of double check. This looks like it's the longer one. So I'm going to spread those legs out so that, and stick them in just like that. Move that so it's a little bit easier to see. And then I am going to turn this on, and boom. So this is basically our basic circuit, right? But now we're going to make it a parallel one because we're going to add our components. We're going to add a few more components to it. So again, I need to double check, make sure we have our positive and negative. So I'm going to spread those, and then there we go. We now have two, and I'm going to kind of make it so you can see both. There we go. This white background sometimes makes it a little bit tricky to see. And then I'm going to add a third one. Double checking, make sure I have positive, positive, negative to negative. And there we go. I think you should be able to see all three. And so, yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3. And so basically we have, this works as a parallel because we have our batteries, and basically the same amount of voltage is going to all three. So the volt, or voltage, is the measure of how much electricity is getting to each of our LEDs. So it's the same amount because they basically have their own path to the battery, right? And so if this was a series, though, potentially it would be like the first one, it would get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. But these are all kind of lit up the same. It's kind of hard to tell because they're all different colors. But if I had all the same color, they would all be kind of the same brightness. And so it's very similar. So you can kind of see on our picture on our how each of them have their own access and own path to the battery. So that means that because the same amount of voltage is getting to each of these, our battery, if we were to keep this on, our batteries would die quicker than if there was only two or if there's only one. And this is a good example. See how I can take them out, take them out and put them in, and it doesn't affect. So if I wanted, I could put them in and take them out, and it doesn't affect the other two. So if I took this first one out, then the back two still work. They're independent of each other. So this is when we were talking about our like holiday lights, this is why holiday lights anymore are in a parallel circuit, so that if one bulb were to break or to burn out, it doesn't affect the entire string of lights. Because again, if there might be 100 lights on a string, and if you had to check each and every one, that would take a long time. So this is our example of our parallel circuit. So now we are going to do our series. So I'm going to turn this off. Our lights go off, and I'm actually going to switch to this guy because I found that I forgot to charge my batteries, and so they don't have as much juice as I need to make a series with the Play-Doh. So I am going to be switching to this guy. Like if I had full charge on these, I would definitely be able to, but I'm going to be using my 9-volt battery for our series. So now I'm going to kind of go back to this. So now we're going to make it so we have our lights in a row. And so again, we have our positive and our negative wires, again, super important. And I'm going to then use these kind of smaller little balls of Play-Doh. So I am going to stick one, or kind of straighten it out as much as I can. Move that. And then I'm going to stick the wire, just slide it right into our other one. And so, okay, so we are going to just do our basic circuit. So again, I'm checking my LED leads, making sure our positive is positive, negative to negative. This is long, this is short. I need our long with our red wire ball, our short with our black wire ball. And if I put them in there, I get a very bright light because I got more juice coming from our LED, right? Or from our battery. So I have our nice bright LED light. So I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to take it out of one side, and we are going to put another one in the middle, and I'm going to stick that. And so this isn't necessarily going to be touching a wire, but we're going to take another one, and we need to make it so it kind of alternates positive to negative. So we have it where we have our positive wire, we have our positive leg in this first ball, and then our negative leg in this second ball. But now we need to alternate where it goes positive to negative. It's in this way, it needs to be opposite. So we have because the flow needs to go to positive to negative. If it went from negative to negative, positive to positive, or positive to negative, we want our negative leg or lead to end with the ball that has our negative black wire. So to do that, then we need to put our positive long lead in in that middle ball as well. And then if I put my negative one negative leg into our, then we get our lights to show up. And so now we have multiple components and they're in a row. But notice how if I take one out, the connection is broken and the lights don't work. So unlike our parallel, where if I took an LED light, the other two LED lights still worked. If I take an LED light out and it doesn't connect, they're all not going to work, because basically I'm creating a break in our loop. And so these all have to be connected. This is called a closed circuit. And so your circuit has to be closed for your outputs to work. If it's open, like for example, like we talked about how there's intentional breaks, like with a light switch. So when the switch is down or off, that means the circuit is open, or it's broken. Or there's a break in it. It's not broken, it's just there's a break in the circuit. And then when we turn the light switch up and the light turns on, that means the circuit closes and it's a closed circuit. And so now everything works. So you can kind of see that loop here. So we can even try for a third one, but it's kind of dependent on how much juice we have coming. So we'll see. We'll see if we can get a third one. So again, making sure we have, again, this is our positive red wire. So we're touching our positive leg. This one is our negative leg. Then we need positive to negative. So this is going to be our positive leg, and then our negative leg. Ooh. Just see it. And then, so you can just see, I might zoom in to see if you can see it a little bit better. Maybe, if I can get my remote to work. There we go. There we go. So you can kind of see, but look how much dimmer they are. And that's because when we did that first one, right? When there was just one, it was really, really bright. And now they're a lot dimmer. And that's because they're sharing the voltage. So the amount of volts that are coming through, that measurement is having to share. So like a little more is coming into this one. There's a little bit less coming into the middle one, and then a little less coming into the third one. Because remember how that flow works. It goes positive to negative. And so because of that, there would be a little bit less current, a little less voltage for as it goes over. Whereas with the parallel, they were all getting the same amount of voltage, right? They were all getting the same amount. So they were all basically the same brightness. And so this is our series. But again, if I break it, all of them go out. So yeah, so that is an example of our series circuit. And so again, just imagine if you had a string of lights and you had to check each and every one to make sure they all worked. So I'm going to switch my video back to me. There we go. Look, maybe with you and a grown-up or an older sibling or a friend, look up different what are different series circuits? Where are different parallel circuits? You'd probably find mostly parallel because, again, kind of like with the light switch, the light and the fan, a lot of things are connected to the same power source, and you wouldn't want one thing to like affect the other, right? So, but look up examples of like when you would use a series, when you would use a parallel circuit. When would you use some of those things? I'm sure there are different things that have a series and that is applicable. So yeah, so thank you for joining me this week and learning about series and parallel. So this is going to be kind of important because from here on out for the next couple weeks, we're going to be more project-based activities. So we're still going to be talking about circuits and using circuits, but we're going to be applying them to different projects. So for example, next week, next Wednesday, we are going to be making a paper circuit, kind of like a paper card, and we're going to be using copper tape and the LEDs and little coin cell batteries to make a paper circuit. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. So the material list for that will be up on Friday on our website at dospace.org if you want to, gather those materials beforehand and make as we go along. Or again, all of our videos will be archived on our website and on our DoSpace YouTube channel. So it doesn't look like we had any questions, which is totally fine. But yeah, thank you for joining me today for our after school club on Wednesday. Stay tuned tomorrow for our surprise. Since you're with me, the surprise is we are going to be playing for our 3:35 to 4:45 session. We are going to, or 3:35 session, we are going to be playing with our Dash robot. So if you want to join me tomorrow, I'm going to be doing that. Join me tomorrow to be doing our kind of learning and playing with our Dash robot and learning how to code it to do different things. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.